Meow.
Chapter 8.
Catnip Assassins,
Two
Book
cats
1.
are lounging in our
Written
garden.
by Skye MacKinnon.
Well, the garden is
Narrated
not
by
much more than a
Muzljakovich.
place to keep our bins in a small stretch of grass, but the cats seem to enjoy the warm stones. Hell, I would do the same if I had the time. I've done that before, shifted and then relaxed in the sun. Nobody from the surrounding houses can look into the backyard, so I wouldn't have to explain why a big black panther is hanging out in our garden. One of the cats is the little kitten, Pumpkin. He meows and jumps off one of the bins, rubbing against my legs. "Hello, little one," I mutter and scratch him behind his ears. He immediately starts purring. The other cat is one I haven't seen before. It's a female, black as the night, with a few white spots on her forehead that remind me of stars. She's stunning, with her silky fur and her bright yellow eyes. "And who are you?" I ask, even though I won't understand her answer anyway, without being shifted. She just continues to stare at me. Do I need to shift? All I get from her is indifference. I turn to Pumpkin, who's still enjoying a head rub. "I've got a new job for you and the others. Can you take a look around the marketplace, see if you find anything? A dead woman, maybe, or something else that's suspicious. Do you understand?" He rubs against my leg and sends his assent. Good. Now I have my own personal sniffer cats. If anyone can find a hidden corpse, they can. Even if I was to shift to use my superior panther nose, I'd never get into tight spaces like they can, and besides, there's a bounty on uncollared shifters. If I want to keep my independence, I need to stay low and pretend to be human. Luckily, there aren't many cat shifters, so people have grown better at spotting canine shifters. If I was a wolf or dog, well, let's just say I wouldn't be living in this town. I give Pumpkin one last cuddle and go back inside to search out Beth. Not that there's any searching involved. She's sprawled out on the sofa, 2 empty crisp packets on her chest. "Oh, morning," she mutters with a yawn when I wave at her. "Morning?" I scoff. "It's late afternoon. I've been out all day." She shrugs and lazily closes her eyes again. It feels like morning. Can you close the door behind you?" I sigh. "Beth, we need to have a chat." Not in the mood," she groans. "I need some peace and quiet. I killed 2 people last night. I've deserved a break." I'm almost jealous at that. Instead of sneaking through abandoned flats and looking at sweet shops, she actually got to have some fun. Remember the money, cat. Remember the money. The doorbell rings, and Beth snickers. "Guess I'll get my break after all." I frown at her. "We'll have a Meow meeting in 2 hours in here. Don't leave. We need all of us there." She shrugs and opens a 3rd crisp bag, while I sigh and leave the room. 3 workmen are waiting in front of the house, all of them carrying toolboxes and other things that are probably meant to look professional. I lead them down into the basement, glad that Lily seems to have closed all the doors to rooms that may contain the more incriminating parts of our job, like body parts, skeletons, and the poison lab. To be honest, most of the skeletons were already there when we moved in. We've only added a few. Usually, we leave our bodies where we killed them. No need in dragging them all the way here just to store them in the basement. "Need anything?" I ask them when I've shown them the cooling room. One of them, probably the boss, looks around and shakes his head. "We'll call if we do." I nod and leave them alone, although I've got my cat senses on high alert. If they move to another room or sneak around, I'll know. I tell Lily and Benjamin about our Meow meeting, then head to my office, already dreading the paperwork that's waiting there for me. When did life become so complicated?
"Feet off the table."
Lily snaps, and to my surprise, Beth lifts her legs and sits down properly, although she does it with a self-pitying groan. We've not been in one room all together for ages. While I always know what everyone's up to, I hand out the task after all, we rarely meet up to discuss one particular case. If someone needs help, they come to me or ask one of the others who has a specific expertise. Benjamin for theft, Lily for seduction and deceit, Beth for poisons and antidotes. We're a great team, except that we don't really work as a team. I make a mental note to change that. Maybe I should do a team-building exercise or something. Kill a target together. Who can kill the fastest? Find the prettiest dead body.
Why are we here?
Beth asks with a yawn.
I will have you know that my brain is still in snooze mode. If you have something important to say, write it down and I'll review it when I'm more awake.
I glare at her. You're going to listen and take part in this meeting like everyone else, I tell her with as much authority as I can muster. Or you can see how you cope with half your pay this month. She stares back defiantly, but I'm already turning away, looking at the other two. They're much easier to handle. I've called in this meeting to discuss the Kindler case, I begin. Beth, you won't know about this yet, so here's a quick recap. Winston Kindler was, Lily corrects, was a sweet shop owner who was murdered a couple of days ago. We've not seen the body, and it's unlikely that we will, as the police have it under lock and key. It seems to have been bloody, though. I could try and sneak in, Benjamin suggests. It's worth a try. I nod. If you want, but don't complain if you get caught. They improved their security measures since the last time you broke in. He shrugs with a smug grin. Nah, I bet they're not good enough to keep me out. They'd have to be really good, and I highly doubt that. The police don't have enough money. He's right about that. Okay, do it and let me know what you find. I take out the file Mr. Kindler's brother gave me and go over the information we already have. He was killed just outside the sweet shop in the early morning before it opened. No witnesses, at least none who have come forward. When I went to the shop, there were no traces left, no scents either. The police believe it was a mugging and have stopped investigating, but still have the body. That's why we've been given this case by the victim's brother. He's not satisfied with the police's work and is willing to pay us a lot of money to find the killer.
How much?
Beth asks, suddenly very awake. I grin. Enough to give us all a holiday, fix up the house, and then some. A sly smile spreads on her face.
Why didn't you say so? I'm in. And didn't you say we're allowed to exterminate the killer?
Lily asks, and I nod. Yes, but first we need to find him. It's all a bit complicated. Let's start with the shop. The only employee is a young girl called Caitlin. Mr. Kindler made her promise to give away all the sweets for free in the case of his death. She did that yesterday, and I think every single child in this town went there to get some free tooth decay.
Could have brought me some,
Beth mutters. I ignore her. Benjamin has found some interesting things in the shop's office, though, right? He nods. Basically, Winston Kindler got some anonymous payments and never paid his invoices in full. It seems people were giving him money, but there's no record of why they did that, what they got in return. I visited his house, I continue, and there are even more riddles there. A key hidden in a remote control and a number scrawled on a lawnmower cord. Then, in the storeroom behind the shop, I found a mattress. Someone's been sleeping there. I'm going to find Caitlin and ask her about that. There was also a note that led me to a flat by the market square. I take out the items I recovered from the toilet, minus the money, and that's already in my safe. If I showed it to these three, it would be gone immediately. I found these in the toilet. Lily laughs.
Seriously? They look rather clean.
In a glass jar, I clarify. Benjamin immediately snaps the invoice while Beth takes one of the coins, twirling it between her fingers.
I've seen these before,
she mutters.
But I can't remember where.
Try to. I say, not unkindly. Lily is looking at the key.
Do you have the one you found in the victim's house?
She asks, and I hand it to her.
They may look different, but they're for the same lock, she says slowly. Any idea what door these might open?
I shake my head. I didn't find a locked door in his house or the flat. Not in the shop either. It must be somewhere we haven't been yet.
I remember!
Beth suddenly shouts, making all of us look at her.
But you're not going to like the answer.
I sigh. Tell us.
The fangs.
Lily sucks in a deep breath.
Please tell me that's a joke.
She whispers, her eyes wide. Beth shrugs.
I can if you want me to lie.
What are the fangs? Benjamin asks. I'm glad he does. I've heard of them, but I don't know enough.
In this town, we have the pack, Beth begins to explain. Some may call them a crime organization, the mafia, but we all know that they're funded by the town council. They keep control of any shifters that are found.
I realize that I'm rubbing my throat and immediately put my hands in my lap, shocked by my lack of awareness. I don't move my body without wanting to. My body is a weapon, trained since childhood to be as dangerous as it can be. I ball my hands into fists. I don't want to think of the pack, but it seems they're somehow involved in all this. Lily gives me a small smile, knowing exactly what I'm thinking. She knows my history, and while I've never told the other two, I'm sure they do too. They know I'm a shifter, and the chances of there being a shifter who hasn't been part of the pack are slim, to say the least.
The pack is like the baby brother of the fangs,
Beth continues.
They're active all over the country, not just this town. Nobody ever sees them, but they monitor everything. They have influence on the highest and the lowest level. If a fang wants you dead, you're dead. They'll never dirty their own hands. They'll simply tell the regional groups to do it. Like the pack, in our case.
If they're that powerful, why have I never heard of them? Benjamin asks.
Because you've always worked independently, Lily replies. You've not been part of one of the gangs. They wouldn't be interested in a lone thief. No, they prefer to exert their influence on an entire group like the pack. It's more efficient.
Sometimes, we knew that the task we were given hadn't come from our pack leaders. I say quietly, pushing through the memories that I try so hard to forget. A lot of them weren't about killing. They were about intimidation. About making an example of someone. The pack rarely told us to be brutal. They wanted clean efficiency. The fangs are different. Beth nods.
And they use these coins as tokens to show that they're either a fang themselves or in their direct employ. I once found a coin like this on a mark. When I showed it to my employer, he looked at it as if it was a poisonous snake, and then tried to kill me.
She shrugs.
He obviously didn't succeed, but he did use his last words to warn me, to get rid of the coin and never talk about it again.
A cold shiver runs over my back. The question is, what does a sweet shop owner have to do with the fangs, or even the pack? If we ignore the hidden keys and the fact that his house looked unlived in, he seems completely normal and boring.
Exactly the point, Lily says. It's all a facade. For all we know, he could have been a fang. Using the sweet shop to launder money, using children as his messengers. If you use cats, why shouldn't he use children?
I shake my head. I can't imagine Winston Kindler being a fang. Not from what I've heard about him so far.
Lily shrugs. Let's keep an open mind. Anything else you found?
I think that's everything, besides the hand that's now in our newly repaired cooling room. I kind of expect applause, but nobody reacts. Newly repaired, I repeat. Great news.
Beth mutters. I never use that room anyway. I'd be more excited if you'd brought me some new toys for the lab. Don't forget the powder, Lily reminds me. I've checked it for the standard poisons, but no matches so far.
Beth perks up. Powder? I nod. In the marketplace flat, they seem to have been making some kind of white powder. Could be a poison, a drug, even some kind of medicine. Who knows? I gave Lily a sample. Beth frowns in annoyance.
Why not me?
Because I thought you'd be busy relaxing on the sofa for the next 24 hours at the very least. I say with a dramatic sigh. Was I wrong? Beth grins.
Let's see who of us will identify it sooner. Lily may have had a head start, but I'm better.
The two women glare at each other, but both are smiling. I don't mind a bit of friendly competition. It probably gets the job done quicker. Good. You two explore the powder, and Benjamin can take a look at the corpse. Me? I'm going to examine the hand. Tomorrow, I'll seek out Caitlin and talk to the cats. Maybe some of them have found something interesting. Wow, we're so organized, Benjamin says with a grin. That's never happened before. I shrug. Maybe that's what Meow was always supposed to be. Private investigators rather than assassins. Beth yawns.
No, don't say that. I'd die of boredom without the killing.
Chapter 9. Lily was right. The hand was cut off when the victim was already dead. That means we're not looking after a handless woman, but a handless body. Hopefully, the cats will find the rest of her. Unless she's been cut into several pieces. I hope not. That would take forever. I test the few traces of blood still within the hand for poison. Nothing. That means she was probably killed by other means, or died of natural causes. Judging from the perfect condition of her skin and bones, though, she seems to have been in good health. She must have been in her 30s, maybe early 40s, not exactly an age where people tend to drop like flies. I do some more tests, then put the hand in the cooling room, which has been left slightly dirty, but very nice and cold by the workers. Maybe I can persuade one of the others to wipe the floor in here. Perks of being their employer, right? I lock up behind me and check on Lily and Beth, who are both in the lab playing with the white powder I gave them. Identified it yet? I ask in passing.
Nope.
Beth grinds out while holding a pipette between her teeth. Not sure that's safe, but she must know what she's doing.
Go have fun with the cats, Lily says with a grin, knowing exactly what I'm itching to do. I'll write you a note if we find something. Meow.
Beth snickers, and I'm tempted to throw something at her. Instead, I leave them alone and check the backyard. No cats there this time. Not on the steps in front of the house either. I whistle a couple of times, but they're either hiding or simply not here. I smile. It's time for a game of hide and seek. I prowl the roofs, following the scent of one of the cats. It's a female one, but I've not been introduced to her yet. I thought it would be more fun to search for her rather than one I've already met. If I want to work with these cats on a regular basis, I'll have to get to know them. I snicker, a growl escaping my furry chest. I now have not only 3 human employees, although I still think Lily has a bit of incubus blood in her, but also an army of cats. Let's see who will be the bigger help in finding Winston Kindler's killer. I've got my money on the cats, just saying. I may be prejudiced, though. The wind is cool against my black fur, and I breathe in deep, enjoying the fresh air. Everything is so much sharper, so much more alive. It's hard to believe that humans will never know how much of the world they're missing. All these sounds, the smells, the way a roof feels beneath paws. The feeling of falling from height only for the body to know exactly how to right itself. Then land on all four paws. My cat body is a true miracle, and I can't help but appreciate it, despite all the trouble I've had because I was born a shifter. It's worth it for moments like these. Complete freedom. Nothing to stop me from doing what I want. I almost forget that I've got a task to do tonight. Still, I better see the cats now and then spend some more time running around. If there's time, I might leave the town and run in the forest on the other side of the river. It's much nicer to have forest floor beneath my paws rather than dirty roofs and pavements. The scent slowly becomes stronger the further I get. The trail is leading away from the center of town into the poorer outskirts. I don't come here very often. The people I'm paid to dispose of usually live in the more affluent parts. There's a reason they need to be killed. Money, inheritances, revenge. Besides, people in this area wouldn't be able to afford my services. I hear the cats before I can smell or see them. 2 of them, both female. Moaning. Not in pain. In love. Seriously? Did I stumble across a cat date? Just my luck. I jump from one low roof to another, and then use some bins as a stepping stone to get down to the ground. I'm in a paved backyard full of rubbish bags and rat droppings. There are more romantic places for a date, that much is for sure. I clear my throat, which sounds like thunder breaking over arid land, and wait for them to emerge from the shadows. A growl answers me, and a second later, I'm faced by 2 cats. The one on the left is the one whose scent I've been following. She's a chubby tabby, a cat nobody would look twice at in the street. Not particularly beautiful, but with fierce eyes that challenge me to explain why I'm interrupting her. The other cat is more elegant, with silky black fur and a golden stripe on her forehead, as if painted on with a brush. "What do you want?" The black cat snaps, her voice surprisingly deep. "Can't you see we're busy?" I smile at her, exposing my very large, very sharp teeth.
"That's Cat,"
the tabby says before I can reply.
"She's the one I told you about. I was going to take you there for breakfast tomorrow morning, Shara, so don't be rude."
Breakfast? Shara licks her mouth. Are you taking me on another date? For a moment, I'm imagining the 2 lounging on a picnic blanket in my garden, candles and rosebuds all around them. Maybe I should organize that, just for fun.
"Perhaps."
The tabby cat turns to me.
"How can we help?"
What's your name? I ask, remembering to keep my voice low. I don't want any of the humans to think that they have a panther in their backyard. It would be true, obviously, but, well, let's not.
"Melina, but you may call me Mila."
She says haughtily. I decide to skip the pleasantries and go straight to business. Cats aren't into small talk. They prefer to scratch before they tell you why. Have you found anything? Any dead bodies? Any suspicious humans around the marketplace? To my surprise, it's Shara who replies. Yes, the stall mentioned she'd found a few dead humans. She starts licking her paws to make it clear how boring she's finding it all. Why didn't anyone tell me? I ask, trying to keep the annoyance out of my voice. Not easy when your body loves to growl.
"Riker was going to come to your house tomorrow,"
Mila says.
"It's not like the bodies are getting any deader."
She's got a point, but they don't understand that decomposition makes it a lot harder to examine a corpse. If I want to have a good chance of determining how and when they died, it's vital that I see them now. Bodies? How many? The cats look at each other.
"A pawful? But Storm is polydactyl, so it could be up to 6.
6 bodies? So much fun to be had in the morgue. The others are going to be ecstatic. Now I'm really glad that I got the cooling room fixed. We're going to need it. Where do I find Storm? I ask, almost bouncing with excitement.
In our home.
Mila sighs.
Which you're not allowed to see. We'll tell her to meet you at the market square.
Good. Go and tell her now, please. Will there be salmon for breakfast? Shara asks in return. I can only shake my head. Cats. I don't have to wait long for Storm to find me. She's absolutely stunning. Silky black fur hides her in the shadows, but her striking azure eyes give her away, reflecting the moonlight. I take a quick peek at the sky. Almost full moon, maybe 2 more days. That's the day I don't shift and don't go outside. It's the only night of the month that some of the most powerful pack members take off their collars and run free. I never had that privilege, but I've heard of what happens from others in the pack. Sex, drugs, and death. Minus the drugs, I think. Being without a collar is drug enough, especially if you're not used to it. I rub my neck. It's been half a year now, and it feels both longer and shorter at the same time. I don't miss the pack. It never felt anything else than a prison to me. Others had friends there, but not me. I was different from the start. Not a wolf or a dog, but a cat. I smelled different. People were aggressive towards me without even knowing why themselves. It's the sense. Cats and dogs will always be at odds. Without a meow, Storm beckons me to follow her. I'm back to human, here in this busy part of town. It's much harder to evade curious eyes. If I need to talk to Storm, I'll search out a quiet corner or backyard and shift there. She leads me away from the square and into a dark alleyway. During the day, this place is full of people heading to the market, but right now, we're the only ones walking through the darkness. A single street lamp throws a small circle of light onto the cobblestones, but both Storm and I have no problem seeing at night. She stops in front of an old house. It's nothing special, maybe a bit shabbier than its neighbors, but it wouldn't stand out if I walked past it in daylight. On the left side of the house, steps lead down into what I assume is the basement, or perhaps a flat beneath the main house. Storm stops on the top step and nods towards the metal door at the bottom. Is this where the corpses are hidden? It would certainly be a good location. The door is locked. I look back at Storm, but she's just sitting there, still as a statue, not giving me any indication of how the cats would have got in to find the bodies. I concentrate on my panther senses and sniff the air. There's a tiny trace of something sweet. Decay. Seems I'm in the right place. I take out my lockpicks and get to work. For a door to a basement, it's a surprisingly complicated lock. It takes me almost a minute to pick, which really says a lot. I'm good with locks. Excellent, actually. As soon as I open the door, a lamp inside switches on automatically. I shield my eyes from the bright light, but luckily, I already know that there's nobody in the room. I would have smelled them when I did my panther sniff. I grin at my choice of words. That should become an expression. Cat's panther sniff. Luckily, I work alone. There's nobody here to tell me off for thinking inappropriate thoughts while staring at 4 corpses. 2 female, 2 male. All of them lie on metal tables as if they're waiting to be cut open. Or butchered. Depends on the criminal, I guess. There's not much in the room beside the 4 large tables. A couple of metal shelves line the wall furthest from the door, and there's a desk to my right, without a chair. Probably used to put things on rather than to write. A few papers and notes are scattered all across it, but I decide to do the fun part first, looking at the bodies. The one closest to me is a woman with a missing hand. Bingo. She's intact otherwise, although there are thick purple bruises around her neck. Strangled. I walk closer and run a finger over her cold skin. The first signs of decomposition have already appeared, but she can't have been dead for more than 2 days or so. It's cold in this basement, which makes calculating it more difficult than if she'd stayed outside. Although maybe she died down here. I'm not an expert in analyzing corpses. I know the basics, but usually I don't really care what happens to the bodies after I relieve them of life. Her hand has been cleanly sawed off. I almost admire the way the edges of her skin are smooth and that the bones aren't splintered. Whoever did this used some proper tools and didn't do it in a hurry. This was a professional at work. Maybe I'll get to meet them, compare notes. Excitement bubbles up in me, until I remember that I'm here to find the killer, not fraternize with him. There is nothing on the naked woman's body that could give me any clue to who killed her. I mean, I didn't really expect that. Assassins rarely leave their name tattooed on the victim's skin. But it's still disappointing. Who is she? How is she connected to Mr. Kindler? And why her hand? It must have been intended as a message for the sweet shop owner. But did he ever receive it? Did he get to the flat in the market square to see the hand before he was killed? So many questions, and I'm still no closer to any answers. With a sigh, I turn away from her and look at the male corpse to my left. He's much bigger than the woman, and his hips almost reach the edges of the table. I wouldn't be surprised if the table suddenly started groaning under his weight. He's naked as well, but there are no wounds or marks. He's still got both of his hands. No strangulation marks either. Boring. The next man isn't boring, however. Not at all. I look at his face, blink, look again, then swallow hard. I've seen his photo often enough to recognize him. It's Winston Kindler. Chapter 10. You're supposed to be in the police's morgue, I tell the corpse, wiggling my finger at him. I walk around his table, checking him from all sides, but he completely matches the Winston Kindler I've read about. Same deep-set eyes, same bushy brows, same stubbly beard, the same pepper gray color as his short hair. Not pretty, but also not ugly. Just a normal man who you wouldn't look at twice if you met him in the street. Lily's words echo in my mind. Him looking so ordinary. That may have been precisely the point. If he was a fang, it would have been the best weapon against being discovered. Nobody would ever suspect a friendly sweet shop owner from being involved in anything criminal. What did you do, Winston? I whisper, looking at his face. Some people think the dead look peaceful, but that's rarely the case, unless funeral directors use makeup, baby powder, and wires in the corpse's jaws. Mr. Kindler doesn't look peaceful in the slightest. I stare at his chest, at the gaping wounds inflicted on him. His brother had said that his death had been a violent one, but now that I'm confronted with the evidence, I see that it's an understatement. Winston was slaughtered. There are at least 20 cuts to his chest and belly, many of them deep gashes. White rib bones are shining through one of the largest wounds. No wonder he was found in a puddle of blood. He must have bled out fast. I step even closer and analyze the cuts. Some of them are random, but hidden beneath the arbitrary crisscross pattern are 3 very precise cuts. They are the ones that killed him. Quickly, too. He was probably dead by the time the other wounds were inflicted on him. Almost as if someone wanted to make it look more violent than it was. There are a few areas of the body that every assassin knows. The points of no return, my teachers used to call them. When you stab there, the mark dies. Simple. Not all of them are always easily accessible. My favorite one, the spot beneath the armpit where you can slash the axillary artery, is often protected by clothing, especially in winter. Although nobody ever protects their armpits in a fight, so it's handy for those dirty moves that make you stand out from the crowd. There are even more effective stabbing targets than the armpit, though. On a hunch, I lift Winston's head, examining his neck. Bingo. a small, almost unnoticeable incision at the back of his neck. The knife must have gone straight through the spinal cord, instantly incapacitated, followed by a quick death. The attacker must have come from behind, stabbed Mr. Kindler before he even knew what was happening, and then, to hide the fact that this was a professional hit, added the other stab wounds all over the chest. To get some blood for special effects. 2 of the deep cuts on his upper body would have hit arteries, giving the assassin all the blood he needed to make it look dramatic and violent. I'm almost jealous of the way this was done. It's neat and clever. Unless you know what you're looking for, this could easily be mistaken for an emotional killing, not the clean assassination that it was. Why? I ask Winston. Why did you have to die? Suddenly, a feeling of urgency runs through me, making my gooseflesh rise, and it takes me a second to realize that it's coming from Storm. Shit! I've closed the door behind me, and I don't know if it's safe to open it. Is there someone on the other side that Storm tries to warn me about? Or do I still have time to slip out before they get close enough to see me? I focus on the emotions I'm getting from Storm. It's not a clear message, not actual words or images, just an intention. What I'm feeling from her gives me the creeps. Hide. I look around, already knowing that there's no good place to hide. Everything is open and easily seen. No blind spots, no wardrobes or closets. Leaves the textbook hiding place, the one everyone always forgets about. Behind the door. Most people never look back when they enter a room. Even when they turn to exit, they rarely look at the spot behind the door. With 2 large steps, I'm there, pressing myself against the wall. I steady my breathing, glad of my training that taught me how to control my entire body, including the way I breathe. There's nothing I can do about the light still being on. There's no light switch anywhere to be seen. I'll just have to hope that they don't notice, or at least don't suspect it's because someone's already in here. It could just be an electrical fault. I cling to that idiotic hope and wait. The sound of someone walking down the steps makes me force my body to relax. When you're tense and in an uncomfortable position, you're more likely to make a sound and give yourself away. By relaxing, pretending that everything is fine, you trick your body into behaving, into not acting on the fear. One day, I should really sneak into the pack's lair and thank my teachers, especially Miss Joan. Then, I'll kill her as revenge for all the things she did to me. She was a great teacher, but she liked to use roleplay in her lessons. Most of the time, I was playing the role of the mark. I got beaten up by her most days, stabbed occasionally, and worse. Shifters heal quickly, even when human, and they made full use of that. I pushed the memories from my mind. This case is making me reminiscent far too much. I'll be glad when it's over, and I can go back to my normal day job, night job, whatever. A key is pushed into the lock. Time slows down as I focus all my senses on my surroundings. I need to be quiet, quick, and Kabbalistic. The 3 Qs. I've always found the third one to be a bit forced, but I like it. Kabbalistic, having a secret or hidden meaning. My whole life has been like that, full of secrets, full of mysterious pasts and identities. In this case, though, I'm just interested in the hidden part of it. Namely, me staying hidden from whoever is about to enter the room. The door opens. I continue to breathe normally, quietly, but in a regular rhythm. If I hold my breath, I'll have to breathe faster and louder later on. Heavy footsteps make me suspect that it's a man before I can even see him. When I do, I realize that I've underestimated his size. He's massive. His shaved head glistens in the cold light. His broad back looks like it belongs to an ox, and his thighs, well, let's not get started on those. Tree trunks. That's what they are. He's 2, maybe 3 heads taller than me, and at least 3 times as wide. He could eat me for lunch and still demand dessert. I smell the air. No, he's not a shifter. Thank the great cat in the sky. He's just an extraordinarily large human. He walks to the corpse on the very left of the room, the one I hadn't looked at yet. Damn. Of course, he had to choose that one. It's not fair. Although, he could have taken Winston. That would have been even worse. Winston Kindler's body is my only good lead so far. Everything else is shrouded in secrets and questions, but him being here, not in the police's morgue, that's a big, fat hint. And this big, fat man is connected to it all. I watch as he takes a knife from his pocket and begins to saw off one of the corpse's fingers. Okay, he's definitely not the one who cut off the woman's hand and who killed Winston Kindler. He's making a mess of it. I could have done a better job as a toddler. At the end, he actually pulls at the finger to try and rip the last bit of skin apart, but it doesn't quite work, and he flays the wrist instead. Idiot. When he finally managed to sever the finger from the poor man's hand, he wraps it in a piece of cling film and drops it in his pocket, along with the bloody knife. Ever heard of cleaning your tools after use? What a buffoon. He turns back to the door. The moment of truth. Luckily, he never glances in my direction but keeps his eyes on the floor, as if he needs to concentrate where he's putting his massive feet. Well, if my shoes were the size of boats, I'd probably do the same. No running on rooftops for him. I wait until the door closes behind him, then run over to the man's corpse. I scan his face, memorizing his features, even though his skin has already started to blacken in places. He must have been here the longest, judging from the stadium of decay. He smells the worst, too. I wait another minute, then open the door. Storm is waiting for me outside, her blue eyes glinting in the darkness. Let's follow him, I say, and she gives me a mental nod. I can almost see her smiling. Yes, cats love to hunt. I think Storm and I are going to have a good time together. Half an hour later, and quite a distance from the market square, both of us are sitting on a roof, watching the house on the other side of the road. We're in one of the wealthier parts of town. Not quite where the really posh people live, but close enough. Not a place I'd ever want to live. It must be a pain to keep the front gardens this neat and tidy. The big man disappeared into the house a few minutes ago, but surprisingly, the house is still dark. Not a single light has been turned on. He did have a key, though, so unless he stole it, he must be or know the owner. Storm yawns and rubs her eyes with her furry paws. I try not to let her see how cute I find that. She'd probably kill me. Cats are everything but cute. Majestic, elegant, godly, but never, ever cute. You can go home, I whisper to her. I can do this on my own. She looks at me as if I'm crazy. She probably thinks of me as a helpless human. Well, she hasn't seen my panther yet. I shifted before I met her near the market, although I'm sure the other cats have told her about me. Besides, she can smell the cat in me. We recognize each other. So much so that I sometimes have a crowd of male cats following me when I have my period. It's both embarrassing and adorable. Not that I'd ever be attracted to a male cat. My libido only works when I'm human, luckily. I don't even want to think about all the ethical implications of what a relationship with a cat would have. There are several things I'm proud to have on my police record. Bestiality wouldn't be one of them. Okay, stay, I mutter, keeping my eyes on the house. Not that anything is happening. It's as if the man simply went in there, lay down, and fell asleep. Maybe that's precisely what he did, but it's a bit strange to cut off a finger before going to bed. No, my gut is telling me that something else is going on in that house. A secret meeting, maybe. It's time to investigate. Warn me if someone's leaving the house, I tell Storm, and she blinks at me lazily. I'm once again amazed at how blue her eyes are. It's like the sky met the sea in one enormous embrace while being sprinkled in glitter and starlight. I slide down the roof, letting myself drop the last 2 meters to the ground. I land in a crouch, ready to jump into action should someone have heard me. But the street remains quiet. I assume that most houses here have intruder alarms, so people will be sleeping soundly, not knowing that most criminals see alarms as a welcome challenge. I run over to the house until I'm back in the shadows, hunched beneath one of the large windows. The grass beneath me is wet, even though it hasn't rained in days. They must be watering their garden. Such a waste of resources just to have greener grass than their neighbors. I press my ear against the wall. There are definitely several people in there, some of them talking, but the walls are too thick for me to make out anything specific. I need to get closer. Annoyingly, with the shine of the street lamps, it's brighter out here than it is inside the house. Someone could be standing by the window, watching me, without me seeing them. No, looking through the windows isn't a good option. I need to get inside. There's a balcony on the other side of the house that should be the perfect way to get inside, or at least closer to the roof. I have a thing for rooftops. Suddenly, there's a loud bang inside, like someone's been slammed against a wall. Shouts follow, indistinct but loud enough for me to separate them into 4 different voices, all men. Miss Jones' words pop into my head. "Crime is a men's world, girls. Better show them what you've got." Maybe I'll skip the roof after all. More loud noises inside, intermixed with groans and shouts, like they're having a brawl. Are they killing each other? Saves me from having to do the job, if they're indeed Winston Kindler's killers. Not that I'd mind. I feel Storm's warning at the same moment I instinctively swing around to a sound behind me. My knives are in my hands, just in time to counter the first strike coming from the shadows. Someone is attacking me, but it's too dark to see his features. A man, judging from the way he moves and his size, but I know that looks can be deceiving. Another slash of silver, and while I manage to block it, I don't see the tiny dart until it's too late. It embeds itself in my throat, and a moment later, darkness overwhelms me. The last thing I feel is Storm's fear. Chapter 11. The moment I return to consciousness, I swing my body into action, jumping up to face whoever is attacking me. Except that there's nobody to fight. I'm alone in a bright white room that's completely empty. Not even a window, just a metal door, sleek and shiny. Where the fuck am I? I do a quick check of my situation. I'm tired and a little wobbly on my feet, but there doesn't seem to be any injuries or damage. My head is pounding. I push the pain away. I don't have time for a headache. I feel for the dart that hit me on the neck, but it's no longer there. There's a tiny bit of dried blood where it must have been. Annoyingly, I know exactly what I was poisoned with. The bitter taste in my mouth, the headache, the slight vertigo. I've experienced that many times during my training. Sweet apple. Called that because it smells that way when heated, like a summer meadow full of apple trees and flowers. It's easy to make, and very effective. It works instantly, causing the target to fall unconscious within seconds. Even better, it doesn't leave traces in the blood after the victim recovers. Or when they die. The only way to figure out if it was sweet apple is to recover the dart, or to ask the victim about their symptoms. For something with such a pretty name, the aftertaste it leaves is disgusting. I wish I had a glass of water, but for now, I'll have to do with spitting in a corner. It's not like this is my living room. Whoever brought me here will just have to deal with it. I walk to the door, checking out the lock. It's modern, but not impossible to crack. I have lockpicks sewn into my tunic. No, I don't. I groan. The poison must have affected me more than I thought. How did I not notice that I wasn't wearing my own clothes anymore? They've put me in a simple t-shirt and tight-fitting trousers that are at least one size too small around the hips. I have no idea how they even managed to zip them up. Not what I'd usually wear, but at least I'm not naked. And yes, I'm trying very hard not to imagine how I was almost naked when they changed my clothes. I check under my shirt. Luckily, I'm still wearing my bra, which also means that I have a lockpick. I grin and pull it from under the wiring. I always count on the fact that people won't touch a woman's underwear if they search you, unless they want to grope you, which usually ends with them dead or missing their balls. Either method works to keep them from doing it again. I go on my knees and insert the picks into the lock. They're almost a little big for this kind of lock, but I'm sure I'll manage. I may not be as good as Benjamin, but there aren't many doors that will stay locked if I set my mind to it. Just when I'm about to get the angle right, footsteps are coming from afar, moving towards me. Damn! I hastily push the lockpicks back into my bra and adjust my shirt, then get into position to attack whoever is about to enter my room. "Are you awake?" a male voice asks from the other side of the door. I hesitate for a moment, then reply with a sharp, "Yes." "Stand back. I've got some hot tea, and you don't want that all over you, should you try and tackle me." I frown. Did he mention tea? As if we're going to have a little tea party in here, a relaxed chat with a steaming mug in our hands? I don't think so. Whoever he is, he attacked me, darted me, and then kidnapped me. I'm not going to have tea with him. I'm going to make sure he's never going to drink tea ever again. Still, when the key turns in the lock, I do step back and wait for him to enter. Of course, I'm planning to escape as soon as he takes his first step into the room, but when he does, I gape at him. "Lennox?" He grins. "Nice to see you again, Cat. Sorry about the dart. I didn't recognize you in time." I can't take my eyes off his face. Lennox, the only boy to ever escape the pack. Besides me, of course, but I had help. Lennox, the boy who left me behind, left without saying goodbye. I want to ask him how he got away. I want to shout at him for leaving me. I want to... But no words come. He didn't lie about tea. He's carrying a large pot in one hand and 2 chipped mugs in the other. I could easily run right now. He wouldn't be able to stop me. But Lennox... I need to know what happened to him. For a while, I was convinced he was dead until I heard a rumor about a white wolf being spotted outside the town. A white wolf with a black spot on his forehead. He puts the pot and cups on the concrete floor and closes the door behind him. He doesn't lock it, which somehow makes me relax a little. He sits down on the floor, crosses his legs, and begins to pour the tea as if this was the most normal situation possible. I study him, mentally comparing him to the boy I knew. He'd always been tall, but now his bony frame has taken on muscles. His shoulders have become broad and his chest defined. The boy I knew has turned into a man. He grins and runs his hand through his black hair. I never understood how he could have white fur as a wolf and pitch black hair as a human. His bright blue eyes are the same, though, no matter whether he's shifted or not. They're paler towards the center and turn into an azure blue on the outside, before being ringed by the same black of his hair. Now, there's a hint of black stubble on his cheeks and chin as well. Is he trying to grow a beard, or did he simply forget to shave? I force myself to look away from him and take one of the mugs instead, breathing in the scent of the steaming tea. It's good. Surprisingly good. But then, he's a trained assassin. We school our senses, especially our sense of smell and taste. We wouldn't be able to work with poisons otherwise. In the end, tea is just another herb. except that it's used to make us feel good rather than to kill or injure. I forgot to bring milk. Would you like some? His voice reminds me of dark chocolate that's slowly melting in my mouth. I swallow hard. It must be a side effect of the sweet apple poison. No thanks, I reply politely, even though I prefer my tea with milk. I don't want to prolong this conversation, however. For some reason, he drugged and kidnapped me, and even though I want to know what he's done all these years, I want to know the reason for my abduction more urgently. Why am I here? I ask while he calmly sips his tea. With his expensive black clothes, he looks almost posh. I have to hide a grin. That was our absolute nightmare when we were children. We never wanted to be posh. Rich? Yes. Although all that meant for us was never to be hungry and not to be beaten. But we didn't want to be all clever-sounding and well-dressed. He smiles at me and makes me wait until he puts his mug down. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, he says, his eyes meeting mine. They're full of warmth, confusing me. I'm sorry I had to dart you, but I couldn't risk alerting the people inside. They would have done much worse had they found you. You attacked me, I accuse him. You could have killed me. He shrugs. I didn't recognize you at first. You've changed a lot since I last saw you. He gives me an appreciative glance, his eyes wandering up and down my body. It seems I've been not the only one checking the other out. Suddenly, I feel even more uncomfortable knowing that it was likely him who undressed me. Before, it was an unknown bad person. But now, this is all very confusing, too emotional. I need to get myself under control. This isn't me, the child from back then who's happy to see her friend again. No, I'm Cat, the assassin, the owner of Meow, and he's someone who could threaten me doing my job. What were you doing there? He asked me, and I laughed darkly. You could have asked me before you poisoned me. I already said I'm sorry. He replies, his voice still calm and measured. I expected to be alone, and I panicked. What were you doing there? I throw the question back at him. He smiles. I asked you first. Well, you're the one who needs to apologize, so you answer first. I can't help but grin. This almost feels like old times. We constantly argued, but we rarely ever had proper fights. Lennox sighs. I was there to protect my current employer. He was having a meeting inside and asked me to keep an eye on the perimeter. I didn't really expect any trouble, but then I saw an intruder and had to act. When I realized it was you, I decided to bring you here rather than tell my boss. He doesn't know about you. Yet. That last word hangs in the air, making a slight shiver run over my back. Who's your employer? I ask warily. He gazes down at his mug. I can't tell you that. He's a very private man. I snicker. Most criminals are. They're private people because they have things to hide. Skeletons in their closets. Body parts in their fridges. Lennox looks up again and meets my eyes. Now it's your turn. What were you doing there? Did the pack send you? I gape at him. The pack? Of course, he doesn't know. How should he? I laugh. No, I've got my own company now. I'd give you a business card, but they're in my bag, which I no longer have. I frown at him in annoyance. Sorry, I'll give your stuff back to you once we're done here. But how can you be away from the pack? Why would they let you go? You were always a thorn in their side, but you were one of their best assets. His eyes wander to my neck, the place where a collar once sat. I had a bit of help, I admit. I'm on my own now. I have my own team, my own base, my own morgue, and my own cases, one of which brought me to that house. But... He's obviously confused. The pack wouldn't just let you go. Even if you managed to escape, wouldn't they try to get you back? Suddenly, his expression hardens. You're lying to me. You're still one of them. His voice turns bitter. Here I am, being nice, giving you tea, hoping that we could maybe, I don't know, become friends again, while everything you say is a lie. They've trained you well. I shake my head. Look at me. I'm not lying to you. Yes, they tried to get me back. Yes, they almost succeeded. They caught me once, but I got away. Not before finding out one important thing, however. They can't put a collar back on an uncollared adult. Not after more than a day or two. It would kill me. So their choice was between killing me and letting me go. He still looks at me suspiciously. I know the pack. They'd prefer killing you rather than let you set a precedent for others who might want to leave. I snicker. Everyone wants to leave, except for the leadership, obviously. I don't think anyone wants to be in the pack. I know a few people who loved being there, Lennox says. It gave them a sense of community that they hadn't experienced before. I laugh bitterly. On the expense of those they bullied, but anyway, you're right. They would have killed me, if I hadn't provided them with an incentive not to. What? He asks sharply. Money. Lots of it. The friend who helped me leave also gave me some money to start my business with. Instead of using it for that, I gave it to the pack to leave me alone. I've never told anyone that. The others at Meow believe I only got the house and maybe a modest sum, but I've not had the courage to admit to them that I've used the rest as a bribe. Must have been a lot, Lennox mutters. A hell of a lot. Who's the friend who gave it to you? Good question. Wish I knew. Can't tell you. I quip. You didn't tell me who your employer is, either. He sighs. Let's say I believe you. What did you do at the house last night? Last night? Have I been out that long? The room doesn't have any windows, and my watch has disappeared along with my other belongings. What time is it? I ask. He sighs again, impatience beginning to show in his eyes. 9:30 in the morning. I can get us breakfast once you've finally told me why you were there. I'm investigating a murder case. I admit, but before I continue, he starts laughing. Investigating? Are you serious? You've switched sides? Just this once, I say grudgingly. The offer was too good to refuse. He's still laughing. I can't believe you're doing this. You, especially. You were always the best at killing. I smile proudly. You really think that? Lennox nods. Yes, and you know that. Nobody else had your touch. They were either too brutal or too gentle. You simply went there, killed the mark, and left. Cold as ice. But I loved it. A faint blush spreads over his cheeks, but it disappears quickly. Who was murdered? I hesitate for a moment, not sure how much information I can give him. For all I know, he could work for the murderer. Or worse, he could be involved in the fangs. No one special, I reply vaguely. But I discovered a basement full of corpses while following a lead, which then, in turn, led me to the house last night. I'm sure there's a connection. You should stop there, he says quietly, staring at his mug. The people I work for, they're dangerous. I'm not saying they're involved, but you don't want to get in trouble with them. Hell, you don't even want them to know that you exist. He pauses for a second, then takes a wallet out of his trouser pocket. How much did your client offer you to solve the case? I can match it if you stop investigating. I gape at him. Are you trying to bribe me? You just told me you bribed the pack. he replies with a hollow chuckle. How is this different? I jump up and glare at him. Because I had to pay the pack or they would have killed me. It was a matter of life or death. This is nothing like it. He sighs. Maybe it is, Cat. There is more to this than you know. Chapter 12. He looks up at me, a sad frown forming on his forehead. I can't. So you just want me to take your money and leave this case alone? Not find out who killed Winston Kindler? Not give his brother closure? His eyes widen. What did you say? This time it's my turn to frown. What of all that didn't you understand? I was saying no, basically. That name, Kindler? I sigh. Yes, the name of the murder victim, Winston Kindler. Suddenly, he smiles, confusing me. That's got nothing to do with us, but I know who did it. Standing outside in the cool morning air, I'm surprised by how quick that kidnapping was. I'd always imagined being imprisoned for days or weeks, tortured, forced to tell my kidnappers all my secrets. And here I am, talking to my former best friend, wearing my own clothes again, and having had a lovely tea. Kidnapping has never been this nice. The people in the house last night weren't all part of the organization I work for. Lennox explains. I wouldn't be able to help you if one of us had done it, but the man responsible is already in our bad books. We were planning to get rid of him soon, so it's actually rather handy for you to want him. If you kill him, it won't be blamed on us. Just leave a calling card, and nobody will suspect that I helped you. I grin. Win-win. What organization do you work for? I'd hoped to surprise him, but sadly, he's too well trained. Nice try, but you know I can't tell you. I don't officially work for them anyway, but my boss does, so I'm involved, but not on paper. It's better that way. I wouldn't want my name to appear on any of their files. Sometimes, it's better to stay in the shadows. I huff. Tell me about it. Life has become harder since I'm no longer working as an anonymous pack assassin. But, at the same time, I get to decide who to kill, so it's worked out better in the long run. Lennox smiles at me. Self-employment suits you. Do you get enough contracts to make it worth it? I nod. I have to reject some of them because I don't have the time. Murder is in high demand, and I doubt that will ever change. And with the streams of refugees settling in the city, there's always more people filling the places of those who've died. Otherwise, I'd be scared that soon nobody would be left in this town but us assassins. By the way, do you still get to do that? Or does your master make you do other things? He shrugs, running a hand through his black hair. It shimmers in the sunlight, making it seem even more black than it already is. I wish I could touch it. No, I don't. What am I suddenly thinking? Sometimes, he says, distracting me from my inappropriate thoughts. I do a lot of different jobs for him. It always depends on what he's working on. Sometimes I still do freelance contracts for other people, if I get the chance. He turns and looks around the deserted street. We shouldn't stay here. Let's move and talk on the way. I nod and follow him down the street and right into a narrow alleyway. Suddenly, relief floods me, but it isn't my own. I stop and look around until I spot a black cat far above us on a roof. I smile at Storm and continue walking, glad to know my new friend kept watch on me. I'm sure she would have called the other cats for help should I have stayed away for longer. I've got a good feeling about Storm. Like she's a kindred spirit. If I was just a cat, without this human side, I might be just like her. Everything all right? Lennox asks, following my glance, but Storm has already disappeared. Yes, I mutter, not quite wanting to divulge my secret yet. I used to trust Lennox implicitly, But that's years ago. And right now, I don't even know who exactly he's working for. Worst case scenario, his boss is part of the fangs or somehow connected to the pack. The latter is unlikely, not with Lennox's history, but still. Better to keep some of my cards hidden until it's time to play them. Tell me about what happened, I ask, not just to distract him, but also out of genuine interest. You left me a note, you told me you'd come back for me, but you never did. I try to keep the accusation out of my voice, but my 12-year-old self has taken over, drenching me with the pain I felt back then. I shudder at the intensity of the emotion. I'd tried to forget how hard his disappearance hurt me. After Lennox, I never tried to befriend one of the other children. I'd lost him, and I wasn't going to go through that anguish ever again. Only when Lily came along, that changed. She was the first person who'd I'd allowed into my locked heart as an adult. While I like Benjamin and Bethany, I love Lily. Not in a sexual way, but as a friend. She's become family. The first time I've ever really had that feeling. Well, except for when I had Lennox. He'd been like a brother. Now, I'm not sure what to call him. How to think of him. Friend? Acquaintance? I didn't manage to. I'm sorry. I never forgot about you. I tried to get the funds to buy you from the pack, but when I finally had the money they asked for, they took it all and laughed in my face. They tried to kill me. I almost died, Cat. If my master hadn't found me, I'd be dead. I stopped walking, staring at him. You tried to buy my freedom? He nods. I can almost see the dark memories that are making his brows draw together. He used to do that when he didn't want anyone to know that he was feeling sad. Yes, I did. But, as I said, they betrayed me. I shouldn't have expected it to work. But I was both desperate and stupid. Somehow, I still had the hope that not everybody in the pack was rotten to the core. I laugh bitterly. I would have been able to tell you that. Lennox sighs. I know. They always treated me differently from you. I always had more privileges. So, I thought I could count on the same leniency again. I was wrong. He rubs his abdomen. Did they stab you? I ask, and he immediately removes his hand from his belly. Amongst other things. But as I said, I survived and have been working for my master ever since. He made me stop trying to get you out of there, but he promised that he would help me set you free once you were an adult and able to work for him. I raise an eyebrow. I guess that never happened. He looks to the ground. No, it didn't. We walk on in silence. He leads me through the crafters' quarter, but we avoid any of the busy streets where shops will be open by now. Where are we going? I ask finally. I know where we are, and I have a few theories about where we're headed, but I don't like not being in control. Almost there, he replies. To my frustration, he doesn't expand on that. How did you escape? I ask, unwilling to stay in silence. He owes me that answer. I've been wondering for almost 10 years how he managed to get away from the pack, and why he didn't take me with him. Remember how they always told us that only those with special abilities could open our collars? And how they proved it by having us try it on each other? I nod, remembering it all too well. We couldn't even touch our own collars without pain shooting through our heads. They showed us that we could touch other children's collars without either of us feeling the pain, but none of us ever managed to open them. Well, that's only partially true. Actually, it's not true at all. It wasn't about abilities. The adults who opened the collars, they always did it with one hand only, remember? Again, I nod. It's not something that struck me as strange before, but he's right. We even tried to copy them by touching it with only the fingers of our right hand, but it was useless. None of us ever managed to open a collar. That's because they were holding a key in their other hand, Lennox says, and I stop, staring at him. A key? They never used a key on the collar. There was no lock, just that clasp at the back. He smiles grimly. Not a key in the physical sense. It's an object that needs to be held so that the holder can open the collar. Not sure if it's some sort of magnet or electricity, or magic, but you need that key to open it. With the key, anybody can do it. So all you had to do is figure that out and steal a key. I whisper, the implications of it all rushing through my mind. All those children. They could all be freed. I never thought it possible because I believed in the special power bollocks. But now? So many possibilities. Lennox nods. I wasn't sure, though, and I didn't want to endanger you in case I was wrong. I knew that if they caught me, I'd be dead. You understand why I had to try it on my own, right? I was always planning to come back for you in case it worked. But... He sighs deeply. Do you remember how it felt when your collar was taken off for the first time? The rush of adrenaline, the urge to shift, all your senses going in overdrive? Yes, I do. The man who opened my collar, he helped me control it. Then you were luckier than I was, he says, sadness tinging his voice. I shifted and went feral. I ran, and it took me hours to get back in control of my wolf. By the time I managed to shift back, I was far outside the city, far away from the pack's lair. I knew they would have noticed my absence by now, and that all the guards would have been briefed. Security would have been too tight to sneak in and get you, especially if they'd figured out that I knew about the collars. They had us sleep in the main hall, I say slowly, remembering how we were all ushered out of our dormitories without any explanation, even though I knew it was because of Lennox disappearing. At least he'd left me a note. Otherwise, I would have thought he'd been killed by the pack. There was no coming back for me. I never expected to see you again. I didn't even know if you were still alive. A few years ago, I sometimes came across your paws, but then that stopped. Yes, I didn't think there was any point in continuing it, I reply quietly. After Lennox ran away, I'd started leaving tiny paw print marks near corpses, just in case. They were too unnoticeable for anyone other than an assassin who was looking for a calling card. Most of us have one, a way to show each other who made the kill. Mostly to brag. In my case, it was a message to Lennox. Not that I ever got an answer. But now, it feels good to know that he sometimes saw them. It wasn't all for nothing. In some strange way, our friendship didn't end when he left. It kept on going through those small moments, like when he saw my marks, or when I heard about the white wolf being spotted. I'm glad you didn't leave me there voluntarily, I say eventually. It was hard without you. He puts an arm around my shoulders, surprising me. We've not touched in any way since I woke up. No hug. Now, I regret that. I should have hugged him. Let's do it now. I turn and wrap my arms around his chest. Once again, I realize how broad he has become. It used to be easy to hug him. Hell, I was able to link my hands on his back. Now, not even my fingertips touch as I try to embrace him, like a tree trunk. He hesitates for a moment, then he returns the hug, pressing me against his warm body. I breathe in his scent, that wild, untamed wolf scent mixed with masculine spices. It's good to have you back, he whispers, pulling me even closer. Our bodies are touching everywhere now, and I'm suddenly very aware of how we have changed. He's a man now, I'm a grown woman. I didn't have boobs when I last hugged him. Well, not very developed ones. Now, they're squeezed tight against his hard chest. Little tingles spread from my nipples through my body, and hastily, I step back. He releases me, and silence falls, both of us a little embarrassed. And shocked, in my case. My body responded to him. Not like him as a friend, but as a man. That's something I will have to think about. Not that there's any chance of us being more than friends. We're both busy. I still don't know who he's working for, and besides, we're assassins. We don't do relationships. We kill and get killed. Simple as. And not only that, I'm a cat. He's a wolf. It's no coincidence that dogs and cats hate each other. It's something intrinsic, something that sometimes bursts to the surface when Lennox and I were arguing, an animosity that couldn't be explained, a tension that wasn't supposed to be there. Can things like that be overcome? I'm not sure. We should go, I mutter, and wait for him to lead the way. He looks at me, but I evade his gaze, not wanting him to see how vulnerable I feel in this moment. I thought I had my emotions under control. Damn. I was wrong. Chapter 13. We stop in front of a tall, narrow building squashed in between two broader houses like a piece of cheese between bread. We're here, Lennox says and fumbles in his pockets, probably looking for a key. What's here? I ask, still frustrated by the fact that he's led me to goodness where, and I don't have a clue about who we're going to see. It could be a trap. Patience, kitty. He chuckles. I almost hit him for using that old pet name. I'd forgotten that he used to call me that. He was the only one who was allowed. Barely. Sometimes I did hit him for it. He seems to know exactly what I'm thinking. I assumed you were going to beat me. He laughs. Glad to know I was wrong. Can I call you Pussycat now? I knee him in the balls. Not hard. I'm not that cruel, but hard enough to make him wince and bend over. All right. Lesson learned. He wheezes. No pussycat. No, step back and wait out here while I check if he's there. He doesn't like being surprised. I want to protest, but he shoots me one of his famous, trust me, don't talk back looks. I remember those too. He was one of the few people I listened to. Well, one of the few who didn't need to use threats or violence to keep me under control. While he unlocks the door and goes inside, I study the street. We're at the very edge of the city, close to the river. Old city walls surround this area, no longer guarded or used. They look pretty, though, and I used to love running on top of them, imagining that I was a soldier protecting the city. I laughed to myself. Such a childish idea. Protecting the city. This town doesn't need protecting from outsiders, only from itself, from its people. I don't know if every city has such a high percentage of criminals, or if it's just us. Most people I know are involved in some kind of shady business, whether it's forgery, theft, or killing. But then, that doesn't say much. I don't really mix with ordinary people, unless it's to free them of life, obviously. The street is mostly clean, and the little front gardens are well looked after. This area isn't as posh as the one I went to last night, but it's still one of the better places to live. Not enough rich people to make it a target for thieves, but also not cheap enough to attract the less wholesome parts of the population. Lennox is taking his sweet time. I check my knives are all where they're supposed to be. My poison darts are still in my tunic collar. I have some other supplies in my bag, but I've certainly got enough weapons on me to defend myself. Or to attack. Either is a possibility in my line of work. A small cat is hiding behind a bush in the garden opposite. Hello, I whisper. Are you one of Riker's? A scent is projected towards me. Nice to know I've got another one of my spies on hand. Get some of your friends, I whisper, knowing the cat will hear me, but nobody else will. Explore the area. Check out this house. Watch if there's anything strange happening. Hunger. In response, my own stomach begins to growl a little. I'll make sure you get fed when I get back home. I promise. All of you, however many of you there are. The cat gives me one last look, then runs off, leaving me with a little more confidence about the current situation. Even if Lennox is hiding something, I will find out what's going on here. For him to offer me so much money, it must be something big, something important. A strange urge to protect Lennox creeps its way into my mind. I don't want him to come to harm. Then I remind myself that he's done very well for 10 years without me protecting him, so it's rather ridiculous of me to think that he needs me. He's a grown man. He can look after himself. He'll know when to get involved and when to stay away. You can come in now, he shouts from inside the house, and I gladly follow his voice. I hate waiting. He's in the living room, together with a man who's got his back to me. I sniff the air. Something is familiar about this man, even though I can only see him from behind. His smell. I've met him before, but not long enough to properly remember his scent. Having a human mind and access to the senses of a panther means that I often get messages from them both, but I don't always have time to connect them. In this case, I know the scent, but I didn't get a chance to connect it to a memory. It happens to me a lot. Sometimes I wonder if we're supposed to be like this. Shifters. Part human, part animal. Not quite either. Maybe we're really a mistake of nature, as some of the teachers at the pack used to say. Not just an accident. A mistake. Something that can only be corrected by force. Meet my, friend. Lennox says, a slight hesitation before the last word. Does that mean this is his boss, perhaps? Slowly, the man turns around. Lovely to see you again, he says with a warm, pleasant voice. Fuck. It's the man in the top hat. My anonymous benefactor. The man who saved me. When I first met him, he was wearing a hat and a waistcoat. Now, he's dressed in a simple but expensive suit. His hair is almost entirely white, save for 2 black strands loosely pulled back. His eyes are just as intense as I remember. The scars on his cheekbones don't seem as pronounced, now that I'm not in a dark room with him. You? I stutter, completely taken aback. I didn't expect this. Not in the slightest. I only saw him once. All our communication since then has been by letter. Sometimes he sent me details of jobs he wanted me to do, people he wanted me to kill, and once he even sent me a warning about the pack being active in the area. In a way, I knew he was watching me from afar, but he never seemed interested in meeting me face to face again. You two know each other? Lennox asks in confusion. I nod, still rattled and a little confused. He's a friend, the man interrupts. Shit, I don't even know his name. I never told Lennox about my mysterious benefactor, right? Did I? We talked about so many things, and I was so lost in memories. We've met before, he adds, but why have you brought her here? Oh, so Lennox hasn't told him yet. What did they talk about while I was waiting outside? The weather? Cloudy with a chance of murder. She's investigating a murder case that involves Mr. Kindler. Lennox says, I thought you might have some information for her. The man smiles. Mr. Kindler, yes. I heard about that. My granddaughter used to go to his shop a lot. Until the rumors started. Then she stopped, obviously. What rumors? I ask immediately. That his sweets contained certain substances. he replies smoothly. Things you wouldn't want your child to eat. Like sugar? Lennox quips, but it's clear the mystery man doesn't find it funny. Is that what this is all about? I ask, realizing the implications. Someone killed Winston Kindler to stop him from doing that? Or for revenge? The man's eyes meet my own, unblinking, so intense. I make my panther rise to the surface, and for a moment, I know that my pupils change color. His eyes widen. Then he gives me a small smile. I know who killed them. I also can't tell you who did it because I support why they did it. All I can advise is that you stop investigating and leave these things alone. I frown. Are there going to be consequences if I continue? Not from my side, no, he says, surprising me. But you're walking on dangerous paths. There are people involved who you don't want to be noticed by, my dear. If I were you, I'd stay away from them, especially with your history. Until now, Lennox has stayed quiet, but now he asks, what did he sell? What was in the sweets that would make someone want to kill him? The man turns to Lennox, his expression hard. I shouldn't tell you this, but it may persuade our friend here to keep her nose out of it. He sighs deeply. I don't need to tell you this. You already know how more and more shifters have been born over the past decade or so. Humans and shifters procreate, knowingly or not. Even if not all children are born shifters, they may carry the genes and pass them on to their offspring. Some people are scared of that. They want humans to stay pure. They don't want evolution. They want control. Having the pack is one way of them to keep a tight leash on shifters. Pardon the pun. But the problem with children is that they don't always shift until adolescence. There's no way of knowing whether they have the genes or not until then. So instead of waiting, someone has come up with a new way to make sure shifter children don't grow up into shifter adults. The sweets. Lennox gasped, echoing my thoughts. They're poisoning them. The man nods, a sad frown appearing on his forehead, making him look older. They've found a poison that only affects children with shifter heritage. I don't know what it does. It doesn't seem to kill them outright, but maybe it will over time. Or maybe it will turn them infertile. Anyway, it's not something I would want my granddaughter to eat. I nod. Is she... Her mother, my daughter-in-law. Now it makes sense. The reason why he helped me, the reason why he's telling me all this. He has shifters in his family, even though he isn't one himself. By helping me and Lennox, he's trying to make this town a better place for his granddaughter. That's why you don't want me to investigate. Mr. Kindler was one of the bad guys. He was trying to hurt shifters. Whoever killed him did something good. His killer is one of us. One of us. Lennox snorts. In this business, there are no bad and good guys. We're all bad, remember? We kill for money. When did that stop being bad? I shrug. Technicalities. Just because I'm an assassin doesn't mean I can't have morals. I would never hurt a child or an animal. I don't like to torture my victims, unless they deserve it. I make it quick and painless. I'm basically a nice assassin. Mystery Man laughs, although there's still a certain sadness reflected in his eyes. Nicely put, but you were not quite correct. Winston Kindler didn't have much choice in the matter. He was coerced into doing it by the same people who I regularly have to fight against. Something your young friend has been helping me with. I look at Lennox, who seems a little uncomfortable with being called young. I grin at him. I'm going to call him my young friend a lot from now on. If there is a now. Will we stay together after this? Meet regularly? Or will this be our last meeting? Will we go our own ways, accepting that life has pulled us apart? I think about everything I know by now. The hand. It was a threat. Huh? Lennox asks eloquently. I found a note in the sweet shop that led me to a flat near the market. They had a female hand in the fridge. I assume it was a message to Winston Kindler. He either knew the woman, or it was to tell him that this would happen to him should he not do what he was told. Then I remember another thing. The note mentioned 100 children. Maybe that meant that Kindler was supposed to poison at least 100 children? I look at Lennox, realizing something important. I found 4 bodies yesterday. One of them was the woman whose hand had been cut off. A man came to that basement, and I followed him to the house where we met. That means the man will be involved in poisoning the children. Lennox cringes. He arrived about half an hour before I found you. I nod. Then he's untouchable. I know him. Nobody would ever dare to attack him. My employer works with him, and even he is scared. Interesting. That means Mystery Man isn't Lennox's boss. Then how do these two know each other? As I said, leave it alone, the man says, giving me a grim frown. Don't worry. Things are being done about it. Go back to your business. I can provide you with some new marks, if you're bored. I shake my head. I don't want his help. I don't need it. I have enough contracts to last me for months, but it doesn't feel right to just stop here. I'm so close. Now that I have this vital information, more and more things are beginning to make sense. Why all his sweets were given away for free after his death? What quicker way to distribute them to children from all across town than by basically throwing them at them? And Caitlin, the girl from the shop, maybe she's involved somehow. She said her family was poor. She'd be an easy target to bribe and manipulate. Perhaps she spied on Mr. Kindler. Now, I really must continue my work, the man says, making it very clear that this conversation is over. Don't try finding me here again. I don't live here, and neither do I usually work here. If you need me, you know how to contact me, but keep it for emergencies. I don't want to hear about this Kindler affair again. Yes, sir, Lennox says, and I nod. Maybe that nod is a lie. Maybe it isn't. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to have to think about it all, at home, with the rest of Meow and with the cats. Chapter 14. I don't take Lennox home with me. It's still too fresh, and there's too much work to do. We're going to meet again tomorrow, though, to talk it all through. Without me being his kidnapping victim. We've chosen a neutral turf, a cafe in town, and we're going to have a lovely tea and maybe even some cake. And no, it's not a date. That's what I keep telling myself as I run back home, using the roofs as my street. Definitely not a date. I've known him since I was 3 or 4, so no, how could it be a date? It's not like we've only just met. I'm glad when I get back to the Meow headquarters and can fill my head with other thoughts. Lily and Beth are lounging in the living room.
Benjamin is outside, feeding the cats.
Lily greets me.
Where the fuck have you been?
I shrug and throw myself onto one of the sofas. I've been kidnapped. Nothing special. I also got lots of new information on this case. If anyone wants to hear it, you'll need to provide me with some food. I'm starving. Beth throws a pack of crisps at me, and I lazily catch it with one hand. I was thinking of proper food, but this will do for now. I mutter, my mouth watering as I rip open the bag. I've not had anything to eat all day, and I'm famished.
So, what was that about kidnapping?
Lily asks.
Who do I have to kill?
A boy from my past. I sigh. Man, actually. Lily whistles.
Ooh, is he hot?
If Kat has noticed that he's a man, He must be. Beth grins. Tell us all about it. Since when has Meow turned into a horde of gossiping women? We're never this relaxed, and we certainly don't talk about boys, men, whatever, the opposite sex. I know why Winston Kindler was killed. I begin, but Bethany interrupts me. Boring. Tell us about your lover. I groan, hiding my face behind the crisp bag. He's not my lover. I shouldn't have mentioned him. He's just a guy who kidnapped me, then had tea with me, and then let me go. Lily laughs. Are you letting him kidnap you again? No, I snap. I'm not into kidnapping, but I am going to meet him again tomorrow to talk about the case. Sure. Beth chuckles, drawing the word out like chewing gum. Just about the case. Then I'm sure you don't mind if we join you. What have I done to deserve this? I thought I was the boss, but it seems I've now been turned into a what exactly? Woman to gossip about? A friend? I had not anticipated that. Luckily, Benjamin saves me by entering the room, his black jumper covered in cat hair. He has a cheesy grin spread across his face. He must have been spending a lot of time with the cats. I'm glad. I'd felt a little guilty about not being there to feed them. After talking to my humans, I'm going to have a chat with the cats, see if they found out anything new, and tell them to spy on both the house I met Mystery Man in and on Lennox. Just in case. What have I missed? Benjamin asks, leaning against the doorframe. Seeing him like this, it's easy to compare his boyish frame to Lennox's masculine body. I've been honest with Lily when I said that Ben is far too young for me. He's still a kitten, in a way. He doesn't even have a beard yet. Cat's got a boyfriend. Lily replies immediately, and I throw a cushion at her. Sadly, her reflexes are almost as good as mine, and she catches it before it can hit her. Winston Kindler poisoned children. I snap before this can get even worse. Immediately, I have the silence I wanted. What? Beth asks, her smile gone. How? I give them a quick summary of what Mystery Man told me. So that's why he didn't have to pay his bills in full. Benjamin mutters, taking a seat next to Beth. And why he was getting extra payments. They were either bribes or to pay for the materials needed for the poison. I nod. It all fits together. Finally, most of our findings make sense. My biggest question, though, is whether he wanted to do it or whether he was coerced. Or whether he started as a supporter of the idea, but then changed his mind, and to stop him from defecting, they threatened him. Cutting off a dead woman's hand is a rather intense way of threatening someone, Beth says, more serious than I've ever seen her. But there are some questions that haven't been answered yet. Why don't you summarize? Lily suggests, and I nod in agreement. Bethany seems almost surprised that we're both encouraging her, but then clears her throat. Well, we don't know who slept in the storeroom at the sweet shop. You have some keys we haven't found locks to yet. Same with the number you found in Kindler's shed. And what about the fangs? Are they the ones who came up with the poisoning? Are they the ones pulling the strings? Or is there a different connection to them? All very valid points, I say, and she smiles. The question is, are we going to continue investigating? I know none of you is a shifter, so maybe you have a different opinion on this, but they need to be stopped, Lily interrupts me. We can't let people like that continue. Killing adults? Sign me up. But poisoning children? Doing who knows to their health? No, that's just wrong. I may not have a moral compass, but I do have a heart. I smile at her. That's exactly how I feel. There are some things that cross a line even assassins like us wouldn't cross. The man you met told you that he's working against them, right? Benjamin asks, and I nod. Then maybe we should switch sides. Stop investigating Kindler's murder, stop treating him as the victim, and start looking for the killer not as someone to fight, but to ally with. They killed Kindler because of what he's done. That means they're against it and are on our side. Unless, I interject, it was his own allies who killed him. The way he was stabbed, it was quick and efficient. The way you do it if you were either a professional, if you didn't have any emotional attachment to them, or if you wanted to make it quick because you knew them. We can't assume that his killer was trying to stop the poisoning. Maybe Winston had become a liability and needed to be stopped before he told someone about what he was doing.
Basically, we still need to find the killer.
Lily sighs.
And then decide whether to kill them or work with them. Which means we're not really that much further at all.
I shake my head. No, we've made a lot of progress. We have new angles to look at. Benjamin, I'd like you to find out who's bought the sweet shop. Maybe they're part of it. Maybe they're going to continue the poisoning. Beth, you take a look at the powder I brought home from the marketplace flat. Maybe you can find out how exactly it works, and if there's an antidote.
I've already started while you had fun getting kidnapped,
she tells me with a small smile.
It's nothing that I've come across before. I'm going to have to borrow some books from friends to see if I can find anything mentioned.
Friends?
Lily teases.
Since when do you have friends?
I have more than you.
Beth snaps. I've actually got a social life.
I want to laugh, but to be honest, Beth doesn't deserve to be teased. I don't know much about her previous life, but nobody here at Meow has had it easy. If she has friends, good for her. I wish the rest of us had too, especially Benjamin. He could do with some social interaction. I grimace mentally. Am I becoming a mother cat, making sure all my employees have a good work-life balance? Not really what you'd expect in a business that has the tagline, "We kill so you don't have to." Lily, have you met Winston's brother yet?
No, but I have a date with him tonight.
She winks at me. Well, I better let you get ready for that. I need some sleep. Before I go to bed, I walk outside looking for cats. One particularly large male cat sits on our front step as if he's waiting for me. His dark gray fur is bushy and loft, especially around his neck. It almost looks like a lion's mane there, slightly silver and shimmering in the evening light. His eyes are a deep yellow with thin, sharp pupils. His front paws are disproportionately large. I bet he can pack quite a punch with those. He's not moving at all, except for his ears that flick left and right from time to time. There's a certain authority in the way he sits and stares at me. Riker? I ask, suspecting that this may be the leader of the cats. He certainly looks like a boss. He blinks. I take that as a yes. Do you want to talk? Another blink. All right, meet me in the backyard. I'll shift there. This is too exposed. He walks away without a backward glance. What an arrogant beast. No wonder he commands an entire group of cats. I go back inside and out again through the back door, shifting as soon as I'm outside. I shake my body, relaxing into my new shape. My fur immediately warms under the evening sun, and I'm tempted to lie down for a little nap. Sadly, there's work to do, as always. Riker jumps from the top of the yard wall, landing elegantly in front of me. "Good evening," he says in a deep, posh voice. I'd expected him to either sound really rough or really posh, so it fits. "Evening. Good to finally meet you." "Likewise. My brothers and sisters have told me a lot about you. I've been curious about this human cat they've been talking about." "Brothers and sisters? Is that what you call them?" He smiles, exposing his sharp canines. "We're a family, with me in charge, obviously. Every family needs someone to lead them, but yes, we belong together. We look after each other, help when one of us needs assistance, share our food if we need to. It started a couple of years ago when the cat murderer was haunting our streets. By sticking together, we had more of a chance to survive and kill him." I growl in surprise. You killed a man?
Of course. He was a threat to catkind. You kill people too, don't you?
Yes, but I don't quite know what to say. It's a bit disturbing to think that a couple of cats actually killed a human. Of course, I don't blame them if he'd murdered cats. In fact, I applaud them. But still, this is unexpected, and it might come in handy. If they've killed before, maybe they can do it again. Perhaps I could make them a permanent part of Meow, not just spying for me, but doing the occasional assassination as well. Anyway, you wanted to talk to me? Riker nods.
Storm told me that you got in trouble last night. I've got some cats on the case. They're surveying the house you were held in as well as the 2 humans you met afterwards.
This guy is amazing. I was about to ask whether you could do that for me. I admit. Thanks for being so helpful. His eyes twinkle with mirth.
It comes at a price. We need more food. Also, we have 2 orphaned kittens that need milk and warm blankets.
That's a big request, I say, totally bluffing. I'll give them as much food as they want to, not just because they're helping me, but because they are cats. Simple. I'd much rather spoil some cats than humans. What do I get in return?
His smile disappears. As much information as we can gather. Protection in case you get in trouble again. We should arrange some signals we can give your fellow humans so they know what's happening.
You know, I don't usually get kidnapped, I protest. That was a one-off.
Call it part of the service. 1 scratch to say that you're hurt. 2, that you're taken. 3, that you're dead.
I growl at him. They won't appreciate being scratched. Besides, I'm not planning to die anytime soon.
One day, we all need to die,
he says calmly. A philosophical cat? Seriously? Have you found out anything else that would be helpful? I ask him to dispel the suddenly rather somber mood.
The human female working in the sweet-smelling shop. She sleeps in the shop, in the other room.
In the storage room? On the mattress?
Yes. She's also been to visit a certain house near the market, the one Storm led you to.
When? I ask, my mind spinning. Caitlin is working with the people who may have killed her employer. I knew there was something off about her.
Not long after you went there. Sadly, my brother had to go back to his kittens, so he wasn't able to follow her afterwards. She was back at the shop this morning, though.
That's helpful, thanks. I'll have another chat with her. Anything else?
That house no longer smells like death. I assume the dead humans have been removed.
Damn it. To be honest, I kind of expected that, but it's still annoying. I was hoping I'd get another chance to examine Winston Kindler or the woman with the cut-off hand. At least we have the hand. That has to be good for something. Good. Let me know if you find any other suspicious things, or if one of the people you're watching do something strange.
Like ripping off some flowers at a graveyard?
He asks with a grin.
Because that's what I saw the young male do.
He jumps off with a chuckle. I really hope that was just a joke. Really, really hope.